Welcome to The Eyes of Indigo with your infinitely curious hosts, Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. Our show is broadcast live at 9:30 p.m. Wednesdays. Socio-spiritual topics are laced with humor as we discuss weird stuff in a rational way. Learn more about us in our first episode, The Prequel. Shows are recorded and available on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, iTunes, and other aggregators. A keyword searchable index is at iriscarter.com/EOI directory. Share ideas and comments in the program chat or by email. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share our show. Let us know you're here by typing your hello in the comments because we are thrilled to welcome you as we begin another adventure right now.
Oops, wait a minute. I muted you. And Facebook has stopped our broadcast for some reason. So let me go to our Facebook page.
Let's see if we can wind it back up.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know that I can. It's just not. Does not make me a happy camper. So, all right.
So if anybody is on the air here with us tonight from YouTube, which apparently is the only thing that's sticking with the program, but considering that we are walking on thinner and thinner ice every freaking week, I'm surprised that we're still on the air at all.
Yeah.
For sure. So I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit in case somebody's already watching us, and the recording does start anyway. Hi, I'm Margot Ross Sears, and Iris Carter is the person beside me that on audio, the other voice that you're hearing. We are the co-hosts, and Iris is our producer of this show, The Eyes of Indigo Podcast Weekly. And tonight we have an interesting episode about the banning of books. And we are working on, Iris is heartily working on getting our Facebook broadcast reinstigated because we do broadcast on both Facebook and YouTube. And Deborah has showed up. Hi, Deborah, from across the YouTube platform. Wise choice, Deborah. Thank you. And we are hoping to keep going and maybe pick up our Facebook program too, because a lot of people do come to us through that platform. So a little bit of rundown there. But while we're waiting to see if we can get the technology gods to play in our favor a little bit more, while you're waiting, if you're watching the show with us tonight, welcome. And if there are newcomers coming on board, thank you. Welcome to the show. And hello to people of the future who are listening in audio and re-recording. We appreciate you too. What I was going to start with while we get everything else shimmied into place a little bit, we're all familiar with banned books. Do us a favor. Type in the comments what you think is one of the most banned books that you're aware of. Any title. And put it in the comments. Once you comment at all, your name will go in that little jar with the triangle on it that Iris just popped up, the little animation. And at the end of the show, we'll draw a winner for a small prize. So, and something fun and relevant. So, do us a favor, think about it. And you can put in a few answers if you like, if you have more than one book that you think may have been banned. Let's say, in the last 20, 30 years. Yeah. Since, let's say since 2010. What do you think is being banned? Even up from then up to now. Iris and I have printed out all kinds, the lists. are huge of titles. We're not going to read them all to you. We're going to read the ones that we find fascinating. But more than that, we want to talk about the bigger elephant in the room. Why? Why are books banned? What purpose does it serve? What did it serve over time? Censorship being banned and burned, why do we do this? In doing so, what is revealed? Also, what is hidden by doing that? And exactly who is actually being attacked? Who is triggered by this? And a bigger question, why should you care? Or even should you care? There are so many questions. Please join us for this searing discussion with Margot Sears and Iris Carter. I don't know if she did that.
Love the play on words between the searing and the fire.
Yeah. So censorship in general is a personal hot button topic for me.
Hot button.
Yeah, it is.
And I guess I should explain the Fahrenheit 421, I believe is the name of the book, written by Ray Bradbury. I think I got the numbers right. The numbers would be the only thing. It's Fahrenheit, FAREI.
I think it's 451 or 420. I think it's 451.
Yeah, and that's supposedly the temperature that paper burns, I think is where that title comes from.
Yeah.
And it's about it's a post-apocalyptic dystopian society that they ban and burn books and all that stuff, and there's been movies made based on
that.
Yeah, so that's where the Books on Fire came from for the.
Makes perfect sense, because back in the day they didn't just ban them, they threw them in. The Nazis were really big for that, and so were other dystopian cultures that were based on controlling the masses. Communism also had periods of doing that. However, we're looking at it being done just as vehemently, nay, quieter, and a little bit more behind the scenes, a little bit less abrasively, but it's still happening. So we find that worthy of bringing to the public's attention that this is happening. So Iris, before we jump in too far, did Facebook come back online?
Oh, it told me it gave me a thing up at the top. When I scheduled the stream through this program, it sends the signal to Facebook, and that's where it's going to stream. Unless I totally reprogram the whole thing, I can't go in at the last minute and go, oh, let's go back to Facebook. But it just popped up a banner and said, Facebook has blocked this stream. Check out the terms of service here. And I'm like, what did I violate in the terms of service? I mean, talking about banning and censorship, is that against discussion of censorship against their terms of service?
So we've got a whole nother topic to talk about.
Yeah.
Censoring a show about censorship. Isn't that intriguing?
Yeah, why would Facebook censor censorship?
We'll have to do the research and see what it is that they name.
Yeah, I ain't got time for that.
Censoring it, but technically, literally, they are censoring a show on censorship.
Yeah.
And Deborah says,
wasn't Tom Sawyer banned due to racism standards of today? Tom Sawyer has been challenged a lot over the years. And what happens, I guess, to explain a little bit, is the American Library Association is it's sort of like, think of like the American Medical Association or the National Educators Association. It was created in the late 1800s. The ALA was, and they're sort of the governing body for libraries. They are the ones who hold up the standards. For standards. And they're the ones that if a local libraries, school libraries, any of them, they're directly associated with the American Library Association. And if somebody goes to the library and says, I object, this book should not be here. This is filthy, fuck, get rid of it, and the library takes down the complaint, and that's considered a challenge. That book has been challenged.
So that's the definition of a challenge. Okay.
Right. And then if they'll usually go to the ALA, what do y'all think? What's the deal? What's everybody else doing kind of deal. But, pressure, like you go to the city council, you live in a town, especially like small towns where, parents go with their torches and pitchforks to the local city council, go, no, we don't want this book in our library. And the town council goes, take it off the shelf. That is a banned book. Okay. But if it's just been challenged, it may or may not be taken off the shelf. That's still to be determined. But when it's taken off the shelf, it's banned. And so a lot of books are challenged more banned. But if somebody somewhere bans them, then it's going to be on the list that the ALA comprises to say, this town caved, that town caved, whatever.
Right.
To popular demand. And so they keep track of that. Then the ones that appear the most surface up to the top. There was a list that I referred to probably 10 years ago, and I cannot find it anymore, that would actually give all these titles over the years. It would just, like, you could look by title and see if the book had ever been challenged and what the results were and why they were challenged. I cannot find that list now. But Tom Sawyer, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, that had been challenged a lot, partly
decades.
because of the racism. Of course, you don't look at the fact that this black slave guy had helped them along their journey and kept them safe and that sort of thing. No, it's the fact that the N word was used in the book, and people go, oh, then just like, come on, people, get a grip. It was the times, what would happen if a time machine came and picked up some of these people and threw them back in the day, and they had to listen to the word?
They would not last long.
No, you're not going to run down the streets and say, that's not a good word to say.
Yeah, look, it offends my little ears. But, all right, so yes, Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn, Mark Twain was a very controversial writer, even in his own time.
Yeah.
Because he had a tendency to state the obvious.
He's
be very
careful and yeah. He was sort of, I consider him sort of like the modern Shakespeare, It was like, because Shakespeare was always jobbing at
his timeline
authorities.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Shakespeare was, he was that. I believe, I'm of the school of thought that Shakespeare was actually a group of people and using one nom de plume. But whatever they were poking fun at their contemporaries and their politics, just like Twain did, and just like lots of people do now. It's more fashionable. Yeah, it was it became more and more fashionable as time went on. So I've noticed also that the type of books that are banned tend to roll with what is hip and not hip in the current culture of the time, what's twisted and not twisted as time moves on.
Judy Blume was attacked for a long time, and now that book, Hey God, It's Me, Margaret, is now a movie. Everybody's loving it. Oh yes, and 15, 20 years ago it was, pitchforks and torches, it was
Judy Blume books and The Joy of Sex were basically put on the same shelf, for their explicit. She also wrote a book called Wifey that was about a couple's sex life from the wife's perspective, like a personal journal, personal diary.
Well, and Another thing that happens is like if a children's book author goes and writes an adult book, people cannot stand. It's like, that's not for my teenager. No, nobody said it was for your teenager. It's for adults. It's like people can't write more than one genre.
They can't separate. Yeah, they can't separate that. And then there's crossover that still got banned and still got lauded as popular, such as the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. That was banned in some areas as, demonic and witch haven kind of stuff and evil and whatever. And then there's a whole nother genre that turned it into a Hollywood icon, replete with its own roller coaster ride and souvenirs and everything else. So, tchotchke.
Yeah. Well, and then you wonder too, it's interesting when people have objections to books and then Hollywood takes them and you get into that.
Exonerates them.
Yeah, and it's kind of like,
look at who's exonerating them. Hollywood.
I don't know if that's a good thing or if it's proving the point.
Hollywood is like the den of inequity. Capital T, the biggest den of inequity. So, you know what? That ties back into something else you and I found in our research. The ALA, American Library Association, that you just said is the governing authority on library and library education and certification and all this other stuff. You and I went looking into, so what is the ALA? Why do they have this much power over what the United States citizen learns, reads, sees, and doesn't see? And so we went digging. And you dug up 4 or 5, 6 of back up. They are a nonprofit. They are privately owned. They are classified as a non-governmental organization. They are a 501c3 kind of thing. They were started in 1854 by Smithsonian Institute president Charles Jewett and a bunch of other people like him. But today, Iris, do you remember some of the major finance supporters, sponsors?
Yeah. Well, like some of the big the bigger ones that were like major, like library champions. You got Capital One,
credit card company.
Yes. FINRA, FINRA, the
Financial Industry. Yeah, but Financial Industrial Regulatory Authority is holding up the ALA, along with the major credit card company, Capital One. Who else?
We also had the Eisner Foundation.
And Eisner was a Disney CEO.
Yeah.
Michael Eisner, Disney CEO, also Paramount, CBS, NBC, and his family were major business owners, millionaires, and so on as well.
So when you start looking at those things jumping out,
Scholastic Books and Nora Roberts Foundation were 2 of the others. Scholastic Books is known for being very controversial in their ways of selling and distributing textbooks.
Here's one that I just saw that I wonder if it's like a conflict of interest. The HarperCollins Christian Publishing Company.
You know what? There would be a conflict of interest with Scholastic Books too, because that's what they do is sell titles to libraries and schools.
True, but also being the Christian end, where a lot of Christians go against these books, it's sort of an interesting conflict there. The American Chemical Society, the Carnegie Corporation.
Boom! Can't say a whole lot of good about the Carnegie group. Sorry. Read their history if you don't know what I'm referring to.
Yeah. And the Northern
bunch.
California and Nevada Medical Library group.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So you've got all kinds of.
So while we're digging through this, as other people come online, Deborah, you put in your vote for Tom Sawyer. What are some other books that you guys think have been banned? Some other book titles that you think have been banned in the last 20 years? We have bukus. We can find it. We can tell you if it's been banned, and in some cases we can even tell you why.
Or so, even last year, I think but any of the more recent, the top years, 10. It's been interesting. Yeah.
It is. If you don't mind, I'll roll forward on that. Well, part of something we alluded to earlier is the list of the top 10 books banned in 2020 is very different than the list of the top 10 banned in 2010. The content, a little bit of related, not much. In 2010, the number one banned book was the TTYL series. What does TTYL stand for? You later. Talk to you later series, which is a series of emojis and emoticons that talk about adolescence. And that was the number one banned book in 2010. Tango Makes Three, about two gay penguins raising an orphan chick.
True story.
Yeah, which is actually a true story. The book that started the Twilight series, the one about vampires and teenagers and werewolves all biting and having babies and shit and killing each other, became a famous movie and TV series. The next book, I'm surprised it stayed all the way to 2010, Catcher in the Rye. Also, My Sister's Keeper. And Iris, do you happen to know what that one's about? My Sister's Keeper.
That's the one that they made the movie about with Abigail Breslin, and I can't think of the other girl, but it was basically the parents had another child in order to have an organ donor for
the first child.
For the first child, but it was. That child was loved very much, and how the whole family transitioned through the whole process, and the right to die and the right to live a quality of life and all that stuff. And the younger girl ends up suing to be able to keep her kidney, and she wants to get autonomy from her to keep her parents from being able to make medical decisions on her behalf because she felt in danger. And it was a very powerful. I sobbed through that movie, but it was so good.
My mother said the book was even better.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
She said the book was even better. Yeah, My Sister's Keeper. To Kill a Mockingbird is also on that list in 2010. This one I don't know. Do you know about The Earth, My Butt, and Other Big Round Things? That's the name of the book. The Earth, My Butt, and Other Big Round Things. It's the name of the book. The synopsis said it was about a book about adolescence.
Humor, insight, and surprise gravity. It's about
a girl in adolescence that had a big butt.
15-year-old Virginia Shreves has a larger than average body and a plus size inferiority complex. She lives on the web, snarfs junk food, and follows the fat girl code of conduct. Her stuttering best friend has just moved to Walla Walla, of all places.
God bless her. That's a tough way to go.
New companion Froggy Welsh IV, real name, has just succeeded in getting his hand up her shirt, and she lives in fear that he'll look underneath. Mom, the successful psychologist and exercise fiend. Dad, a top executive who ogles thin women on TV, and older siblings, Anais and rugby god Byron, both of them slim and brilliant. Delete Virginia and the Shreves would be a picture-perfect family, or so she's convinced. And then a shocking phone call changes everything.
All right. Sounds like a pretty good book, actually.
Yeah.
And then the last book from 2010 for the top 10 was The Color Purple. Now, if you haven't figured it out,
realize why. First of all, have you ever read The Color Purple? It's written like a diary.
Yes, and the book is better than the movie.
And the book is better than the movie, and it talks about the and it's not blunt and in your face, but you figure out that the two women are falling in love with each other
towards the end of the book.
The end of the book, and it's like, but it doesn't. That's sort of a side thing, but that's one of the biggest objections to that book, or so I've read in the past. I mean, it's a beautiful book. Beautiful.
There's a lot of violence in there, but not anything we don't already see in movies and television anyway. Domestic violence, violence against children, stuff like that, rape and incest. But that's at the beginning of the book. So they looked over all the violence, incest, and domestic abuse.
And freaked out over the lesbians.
And slavery, and they freak out over the lesbians that are actually kind and loving at the end. Something's not adding up, folks, and it shouldn't. It's not adding up. So anyway, if you noticed, a lot of the books that are banned are really good. They're well written. They're insightful into human condition. And the ones that end up banned are actually pretty insightful to the darker side of the human experience. So are they banning them to keep us away from them, or are they banning them to make them the forbidden fruit that people will go sneak and read by the droves over the next 2 or 3 years after you ban it? Methinks they protest too much.
Yeah. Yeah. So or does the book become popular and people it calls their attention, and then it's too late by the time the classics. That's what gets me, is when they hit the classics. Now you were going to talk about this year's, and so let me show you. I pulled the list up off the website. Let me go top 13.
Excellent.
Yeah, and this is the American Library Association stand is they don't want censorship. According to the First Amendment, freedom of speech, every person has the right to read what they want to. And the Office for Intellectual Freedom compiles the top 10 most challenged books in order to inform the public about censorship. The lists are based on information from reports filed by library professionals and community members. Many of these challenges are not reported or covered by the press. This is only a snapshot of book challenges. So, a challenge to a book may be resolved in favor of retaining the book in the collection, or it can be a result of a book being restricted. So, they documented 1,269 demands to censor library books and resources in 2022, the highest number of attempted bans since they began compiling the data in about censorship in libraries more than 20 years ago. It doubles the 729 book challenges reported in 2021. Of the record 2,571 unique titles targeted for censorship, the most challenged and the reasons cited for censoring the books are listed below. And then they have the top 10 for previous years. So the first one, number 151 challenges, Gender Queer, a memoir by Maya Kababe. And it's okay.
Kababi.
Yeah.
Keep going.
No, but it's LGBTQIA plus content, and it's claimed to be sexually explicit. All Boys Aren't Blue had 86 challenges. Again, LGBTQ.
Yep.
The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison.
That one shows up a lot.
Yeah, Toni Morrison. She was the poet laureate for the U.S. not too many years ago, and she's a wonderful writer, and has written many other books that you might be familiar with. But
again, banned books are awesome.
Yeah,
if you want a good read, go get a banned book.
One won the Nobel Prize. The Bluest Eye won the Nobel Prize, but they didn't.
Oh, not surprised.
Yeah. So
keep going.
Flamer. Again, LGBTQ claim
another
to be
gay issue. Yeah.
Looking for Alaska tied for number 5 with 55 challenges. LGBTQ, and it's I think it's a Perkins Award winner. I think that's the award. The Perks of Being a Wallflower also turned into a movie. Depiction of sexual abuse, LGBTQ, drug abuse, profanity. Lawn Boy, LGBTQ.
Interesting.
The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. Profanity and sexually explicit. And it's a National Book Award winner.
And that was the number 1 top banned book from 2010 to 2019. God. Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. Number 1 banned book.
Out of Darkness, depictions of abuse, claims to be sexually explicit. And again, I'm not sure what the P stands for, but I've seen that award before. It's an award. A Court of Mist and Fury, sexually explicit. Crank, drug use, which, I mean, crank, yeah, duh, drug use.
Crank is the word for a drug, yeah.
Is the high worth the crash? I mean, to me, that tells me, and it's the New York Times best-selling author that wrote it. So obviously it's not pro drug use. It's just reflecting drug use, but okay. Then number 10 tied Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. And it was made into a motion picture. And this book is gay.
It says that LGBTQ content providing sexual education claimed to be explicit. Yep.
Yeah. Holy cow, people. I mean, now I get, let me take this off so we can see. Let me hide that. And what gets me is, you know, I've been hearing complaints and listening to some of the chatter about book bannings, and I typically have been a strong advocate for freedom of speech, freedom of the press. You know, when my kids were little and went to the library, I would see what books they got, and I'd see what they brought home from school. I'd see what, I would help them choose their books in the library, in the public library. And I never stopped them from choosing to read a book. We might talk about it, we might talk about it. But hey, Rosemary. Okay. She said
you're good.
Replay to catch up. Thank you for joining us. We would talk about books that might have been a little over their heads or had things in it that,
risque.
But they generally didn't even need the talk. They got it because they were well read. They had discerning minds. And I mean, would I want?
They knew what was a glorious sales pitch for for sexual entertainment and what was actually good literature that entertained their perspective of life. They already had that discernment from being well read by,
And most library, I mean, as far as I know, school libraries, when they purchase books, they're told this book is appropriate for this age group. This book is appropriate for this age group. They're not going to buy adult books to put on shelves for school-age children, nor are they going to put Hustler and Penthouse in the magazine racks for kids, because they are adult over 18 books. Or over 21 or whatever. So generally, I do trust and know the procedures. And my ex-husband has got his master's degree in library science and has worked in libraries since the 80s. So I know their policies and procedures, and there's not like there's some evil person in an office at the library going, oh, we need to put these books in children's hands.
We must cut up the little ones.
Yeah, I mean, I would go to the publishers or something like that before I'd go to a library and complain about a book.
Right.
But I did hear somebody talking on the radio the other day about the increase in the LGBTQ books and books about children who are transitioning or want to transition or who question their sexuality and things like that. Do I think that's appropriate for kids in 5th grade, 4th grade? No, I don't. And if they're putting that in those schools, because I don't think, I mean, kids, I don't see kids are not supposed to drink. They're not supposed to smoke. They're not supposed to go to R-rated movies. There's a lot of restrictions that we put on children. They can't get tattoos. They can't get things like that. So why would we put books in their hands that would start making them question their sexuality?
It's going down the same
path. When they aren't even fully understand.
Because their brain developed. Yeah, that's one of the things we're talking about. Why? Exactly. And this is another aspect of why and why not. Yeah, their brain development. I have a secondary degree in developmental psych, speaking for myself, and I've been an educator for years. A little bit of background. Iris is a mother and a grandmother and an educator herself and in the film industry. She knows all about human psychology and development. So the point being, they can't even comprehend what's being put in front of them. The only ones that can, there are some kids who can understand the level of sexuality and confusion that's being put in front of them. The ones that can understand it have been exposed to it over and over and over recently and have been trained to accept these concepts as some type of norm. They have already been taught to normalize that. Same way they do to trauma and abuse and all those other psychologically deviant lifestyle choices that sometimes less than perfect parents subject their children to. Okay? This will get the LGBTQ transgender things for children that are too young to understand will get couched the same way. It'll be normalized, which is exactly what the factions behind this are trying to do. That's exactly what they're trying to push, is to normalize it.
Yeah.
And they're justifying it by saying, if you think any other way, you're racist or bigamist or homophobic or whatever. And that's how they justify that. So since you're not with us, you must be against us. And there's no other way to think. They're creating division. All right. They're trying to keep us divided, period.
Now, I was one of the
black and whiting it.
And I was a huge advocate and still am. I think that penguin book is adorable because these two male penguins, it was a true story. They were in a zoo. There was an egg and the female died, and the two males got together.
We're trying to hatch a rock together.
Yeah,
they
together.
had a rock. They gave them a rock together, and they were being parents to a rock.
Yeah, and it's a sweet story, and their gay animals have been documented in, you know, across the board. They're out there
for hundreds of years.
Yeah, so who gives a shit, right? And you know, okay, so here I'm gonna say it because I don't know if I've ever said this
Go
before,
ahead.
but my first
Go ahead.
husband, the children of the father of my children is gay. He tried not to be. He denied it, pushed it down.
Obviously.
And when my kids were young, my kids were 8 and 5 when we split. When he finally came out, and I can't hide this anymore. It is who I am, you know. And I was like, well, good. We finally figured out what the problem is in our marriage, and ta-ta, have a good life, you know. And we're still friends. We raised our children together. But what we did was we sat down with our children at 8 and 5, and we said, yes, we're getting a divorce. And it is because your father is gay. What does that mean? Well, you know how typically you see parents that love each other, you know, man and a woman, they love each other, they have a family. Yeah. Well, in some cases, a man and a man love each other, or a woman and a woman love each other, and they have a family, and they get married, or well, then you couldn't get married, but you know, we'd use that as an example,
They have
and
a
that's
family.
as far as it went. And we said, and that's your dad. He, you know, and I'm okay with it. It is what it is. We don't condemn people for who they love. We just care that they love somebody and that they treat other people well. My son went, okay, can I go back to playing my video game? My daughter said, she started crying, and she said, and this is what told me we had done the right thing. She said, and we said, why are you crying? And she said, well, it just means that you really won't be getting back together. Because kids hold out that hope that the parents will get back together. And I said, we made the right decision in telling them, because we didn't
lead them on with false hope. Yeah.
Right. Because we
which
did
is
want to still get along.
cruelty.
Right. Yeah. And so my kid, then about 2 weeks after my son had time to think, he came back and he asked a few questions, and then he was happy and he went on. I'm not saying that my kid, like we told our kids, this was in the early 90s. And we told the kids at that time, we're not telling you that this is a big secret. What we are telling you is that you have to be careful who you tell, because some people don't like it. Some people don't approve. Both of us had gay friends that visited our house. They hung around our kids. They respected our kids. I trusted my friends to babysit my kids so I could go shopping or whatever. You know, my gay friends were some of the best babysitters that I had, and were very protective of my children. And I valued the time that my children spent with them and spent with their children. So they had common
kids
ground.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, but like, I know my son trusted his best friend with the information. And when he was about 8, 9, 10 years old, and then his best friend made a cutting remark in front of somebody else and said something, well, your dad's gay or something like that, you know, and it was like, my daughter became a big advocate. They were in summer day camp, and my son ran out and was tussling with another little boy. They were just play fighting. They weren't, you know, and they were tussling. And a kid my daughter's age, my daughter's the oldest, he made some remark, oh, there were a couple of fags out there rolling around. And my daughter turned around and said, don't ever use that word. That is rude. That is demeaning. And so what if they do? Or so what if they are? Does it really matter? And he looked at her and kind of, I mean, she was like in his face. And he said, well, no, I guess not. She said, doesn't matter if somebody's gay, leave them alone. But they're not. They're just having fun. So quit making comparisons. And I was like, you go, girl. she was about 10 at the time, and she told
like
us
mother,
about,
like daughter, like granddaughter.
yeah, exactly.
Your granddaughter had a confrontation and kicked ass and took names too.
Yes.
Obviously decades later. But anyway.
Yeah. The genes have passed on.
Older women are nobody to verbally spar with.
No. But the whole point of this is, so when I saw books about, gay families and things like that, I saw it as something that if my child could read that or could have read that in their day, because it's was more popular in the last 10 years, which is not as relevant. But I have two dads, or Jenny has two moms, or whatever. I saw that as something positive for children who were in that situation, to be able to know they're not alone. I didn't see it as pushing an agenda per se. Now I'm seeing more and more agenda pushing.
It's what's around it. It's not exactly that itself. It's what's around it and comes with it. Timing, presentation, who, that's part of whether or not it's an agenda. Yeah. I agree with you. It's support information for children that are dealing with this kind of thing in their families, in their personal lives, for themselves, for their brothers and sisters, or their parents, or their grandparents, or whatever. However, if you've got so many books that the top 10 of the banned books are all about LGBT, or 9 out of 10 are all about LGBTQ,
especially the transgender stuff. That just
about the libidiquidiqua.
Yeah.
You run all the letters together. So now we're doing that. It's the libidiquidiqua. I forgot about that analogy, or that anagram.
Yeah, I'm going to remember that. It's a lot easier than trying to remember.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to say the libidiquidiqua.
Yeah.
If 9 out of 10 of them are about that, that tells you there is a secondary agenda, which is what was one of the purposes of today's show, was answering another question of why. Why are suddenly only that subject matter and a little bit of drug use, but mostly that subject matter, are being banned? Whereas 10 years ago, it was, the medical rights of children, Catcher in the Rye, Twilight, vampires and magical creatures and werewolves biting young girls, people committing suicide, the Earth, My Butt, and other big round things. The interpersonal dynamics inside of a family. Judy Blume, Wifey, Are You There, God, Me, Margaret? The personal thoughts of adolescent thoughts that sometimes get a little bit way, way, way personal, talking about menstruation and body parts and pubic hair and watching a suicide attempt happen and all this other stuff. It's graphic. Guess what? Being a human on Earth is a graphic experience for everyone. All right, so it's easy to write about. Two penguins having a baby together. That was the kind of stuff people banned 13 years ago. And last year, they only want to talk about libidiquidiq and 1 or 2 drugs. Guys, can you see the manipulation that is subtly, there's mainstream, and then there's the stream underneath? Can you see the subtle patterns is what we're bringing to you? Hello.
Yeah.
So shifting gears just one more time, I printed out the list of the top 100 books that were banned during 2010 through 2019. Of course, I'm not going to read all 100, but I highlighted several of the ones that are intriguing. Seriously? Someone wanted to ban that? that you ought to hear. All right. Some of the more intriguing ones I found intriguing. One you already mentioned, The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. Okay. Number 2, top 100 over 10 years. The number 2 book banned, Captain Underpants. If you have not seen or heard or read Captain Underpants, y'all need to go look at it. It's a little kid's book. Funny as all get out. Another one, this one shouldn't surprise you too much. It finally showed up, 50 Shades of Grey. Alongside of that, The Hunger Games. Oh. Yes, we are naming famous movie titles now. Guess where they get their books from, get their plots from? Banned books. You know why? Because they're good.
Just for your information, I looked up the Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian.
Yeah.
The book, written by Sherman Alexie, tells the story of Junior. It's a budding cartoonist growing up on the Spokane Indian Reservation. Determined to take his future into his own hands, Junior leaves his troubled school on the reservation to attend an all-white farm town high school, where the only other Indian is the school mascot. It chronicles, it's based on the author's own experiences and chronicles the contemporary adolescence of one Native American boy as he attempts to break away from the life he was destined to live. What the fuck is wrong with that book?
Stories about adolescent struggles really triggered those book banners. They do. They really do. Here's a couple of another books that was surprisingly made this list. A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. What the hell? What's wrong with that book?
Which one?
A Brave New World by Huxley.
What is that about?
If you could pull it up and we'll circle back to it.
Dystopian novel written in 1931 and published in 1932.
30s.
And yeah, and it's where everyone is conditioned by birth, and only those with the inkling of free,
free will,
spread, socially indoctrinated, and pharmaceutically anesthetized to passively uphold an authoritative ruling order, all at the cost of our freedom, full humanity, and perhaps also our souls.
Can we say reveal?
Yes. Thinking the same thing. What,
that's
the truth hurts?
What's happening right now to us? And they knew it back in the 30s. All right. So back to the happy list that's here. Do you guys know about The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood? That also became a famous movie about a dystopian society that's post-apocalyptic. Can't say that word easily. Apocalyptic. Where humans have a hard time having babies.
Yeah.
And so we're losing a whole generation. A few women still can have babies. They are treated like commodities because they can have, but they're the rare people who can have babies.
And they do it in the name of religion. Your body is able to have a child, so of course you should be wanting to have these people's babies.
Only rich people can have babies, and they become handmaids who get knocked up against their will quite often. Another book that you guys know about that still stayed in the top 100 back then, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Here's another one, The Adventures of Super Diaper Baby by Dave Pilkey. The Adventures of Super Diaper Baby. They're banning this? Okay, this is a child's book. One that here's the next one. I'm kind of not surprised they banned this one, but on the other hand, they're taking it too seriously. The Goosebumps series.
Oh, yeah.
By R.L. Stine. Occasionally.
And I got my kids those books all the time, and we watched the series together and loved it.
There you go. Number 52, The Holy Bible. The Christian Bible has been banned over and over and over. It makes you wonder who was behind that one. This Book is Gay was right after that, of course, that you showed on the screen. Another one, and Anne Frank, Diary of a Young Girl. The Anne Frank Diary. That's been banned. This one I've heard people quote, the next book, and I haven't seen it in its entirety, but it's got to be funny as all get out. It's called Go the Fuck to Sleep.
Oh, I love that book. And you can actually go on YouTube and there's a version where
like Christopher Walken or somebody.
No, even better, the guy who was in Pulp Fiction, the black guy.
Samuel Jackson. Lawrence Fishburne.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson reads Go the Fuck to Sleep.
Go the fuck. I have a copy of that book. I bought a copy for my daughter. I love that book. It is so funny. And it's not, people go, you can't read that to a baby. Well, first of all, you could. The baby wouldn't understand. But second of all, it's meant to be a parody on the struggles parents have getting their children to go to bed.
It's for adults. It's not for kids. It's a parody for adults to laugh about. Yeah. By the way, look up what the word fuck means. F-U-C-K means formal use of carnal knowledge. It's a legal term.
And so I also recently there was a TikTok going around. This kid made a certificate for his little brother for swimming, and his mom, the TikTok is mom is like, show the dad what you made for your little brother, and the kid's like 6 years old, and he's going, I made this for little Brian because he did the swimming, and it says certificate, and it's like SERTIFUCK. ITAT
certificate. Certificate.
Fuck right in the middle of it. And his dad's like, that's very nice. He's trying not to laugh. And he's swimming, and he's got Brian swimming on their certificate and a little seal and all that. And it's a lovely little, but it's a certificate.
That's going to be treasured in that family for generations. It wouldn't mind.
Yep.
And then a few more. Some of these won't surprise you that they were banned. And there's like another 5. 1984 by George Orwell was banned. Gee, that would be a lot like the Brave New World, warning you of what it's already going to be like, and it already is. A Clockwork Orange was banned. Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. Ender's Game, yet another Hollywood movie. And 2 more. This one was a book by Maya Angelou. They banned her, and she too was a poet laureate for the president. And I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou.
That was probably for language.
Probably. And then, of course, the Walking Dead series was also banned. Yet another
zombies are banned from the library. Imagine that.
Not like they're voracious readers.
Well, you don't want, heaven forbid you have an enlightened brain, because then they'll come and eat them,
A little too juicy might attract zombies for them. Nom, 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 nom.
But if anybody's interested, there's a website called bannedbooksweek.org. It's usually the end of semester. I mean, the end of September. But this year it's early October. It's October 1st through the 7th. And they have
Guess who sponsors it? The ALA.
Banned Books Weeks.
Yeah, and the ALA actually sponsors that.
Yes. It's set up by the ALA.
Which is kind of like...
They have materials like...
Which way are y'all going?
Yeah, you can share banners and things like that. They have things for social media, and they give you a list of the current books and that sort of thing. But that's coming up in October. And then the ALA website is ala.org, and you can look up their censorship information there. They have a bunch of resources and all, if you're interested in digging a little more.
Absolutely. So one other thing that you mentioned in our blurb about today is, how does this affect you? How does this affect me, the day-to-day citizen, and why should we care? From my perspective, it has to do with the fact that censorship and the First Amendment, freedom of speech, the second you allow other people to decide what information you can or cannot be exposed to without your consent, without your knowledge, you are a slave. Plain and simple. Censorship is a felony, period. Thank you.
That's very, very good. Very, yeah, it is.
Censorship is a felony.
Yeah. So with that, we were going to do the get a winner, but my sisters and Rosemary already has a
bell.
Has a bell, and I'll send Deborah one just for shits and giggles at some point. So
Deborah, you're getting a cowbell in the mail.
One. I don't know if I already sent you one or not, but yeah.
That's what it looks like. Yep.
Yeah. I meant to.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. But talking about what's coming up,
some cool stuff.
Yeah. We've got on July 5th, we're going to talk about concerning timelines, which it's going to be about CERN and
the Hadron Collider and how that screwed up the timelines and the Mandela effect and all that cool stuff.
Yes. Yeah. July 12th is going to be a compilation of the best of Eyes of Indigo. I'm going to be...
We're both going to be out of town.
Yeah, we're both going to be out of town, but I'm going to put together some clips that hopefully y'all will tune into and see.
The most popular episodes. Yeah.
Yes. And then July 19th, we're back with psychic readings. And July 26th, Bilderberg. It's not a puzzle, and it's not a bear stuffed bears.
and it's not a sandwich.
No.
It's way scarier than any of those teddy bears or sandwiches are. And you guys need to, if you don't know what Bilderberg is, you need to know.
Yeah.
You need to know. Yeah.
So I have to look and see what the fuck Facebook's problem is.
Yeah. Let's assume that we're still on the air. And guys, if we're not on the air, we said something important. You need to figure out what it was. It was important enough to stop us.
Yeah, which means it's more important that I start getting these on my website too, because I don't know when YouTube's going to start kicking in with their end of things.
Their censorship, yeah. But we appreciate you guys and everyone listening in the future as well. We love you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you for joining the Eyes of Indigo with Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Music is Arcadia by Kevin MacLeod. Find us at facebook.com/Eyes of Indigo, on YouTube under @Iris Carter Enterprises, and on various podcast aggregators. Copyright 2023 by Iris Carter and Margot